I made a visual work of art. I started 2 days ago. I added clear school glue to a piece of cardboard and smeared it all over. And then I added pumpkin seeds to the glue and spread them around in a single layer all over the piece of cardboard. And I continued spreading more pumpkin seeds around and around in the single layer. And I covered the entire surface of the cardboard with pumpkin seeds. And press them down to glue them to the board. And made sure that I filled in all the spaces with pumpkin seeds. They were fresh, whole, raw pumpkin seeds with nothing added. And then I was done covering the cardboard with pumpkin seeds. So then I sprayed the pumpkin seeds. First I shook the can of glue spray. And at first the nozzle was clogged. I thought maybe I should pour the school glue, but I opted for pressing the nozzle enough times to unclog the nozzle, and then I sprayed all of the pumpkin seeds with the spray glue. And then I let the glue dry. It said it dries in 30 minutes on the can. I didn't really wait that long, but I gave it a few minutes of drying time. While I thought about what I was going to do to make a picture with the pumpkin seed coated piece of cardboard. So I looked around my home for things to make with it, and I looked at fabric and thought that wouldn't really be three-dimensional, considering how 3D the seeds are to begin with. I wanted something as three-dimensional as that. I added some chia seeds to add more three-dimensional qualities to it. And I also added some hemp seeds. So I scattered chia seeds and hemp seeds all over the pumpkin seeds. Not a whole lot, just a little bit to add some more texture to it. And then I continued letting it dry a little bit longer. And then I saw colored clay on hand. I had made some figurines with it and still had some on hand. So I decided to use my colored clay to make as some three-dimensional figures. At first, I thought of just shapes. I started with just a circle and a sphere. And then I made another circle by twisting some clay into a rhomb. And then I made another sphere and pressed it into a circle. And then I found my dog figurine that I had already made and saved. So I started deciding to make more animal figurines using a rhomb as a foundation for the body and a sphere as the start of the head, and then shaping the rhomb and sphere further and adding legs. And so the basic construct was a rhomb and then folded in on itself halfway, and then a sphere on the end, and then feet on the bottom. So I pressed the figurines flat to make it more like a picture to hang on the wall. And I continued making more figurines. I kept the dog basically the same after flattening it. And I made a parrot, and that other bird beneath the dog became a woodpecker. And that one I'm making right there is going to be a loon. I didn't really know what kinds of animals I was really going to name from it all. I just made shapes that just came to me as I molded the clay. And I added an eye on each one. And I went on to making more in the same way. A twisted rope folded in half, a sphere for the head, and then a sphere for the feet. And that became the mother eagle. I like to make it three-dimensional rather than just two-dimensional. I think it's more interesting to be three-dimensional. And that is the start of the alligator. So I made it just a foundation of animals at first. Later on, I carved grooves in it because it wasn't beautiful at first. It needed some texture, so I used a wooden skewer and drew patterns into their surfaces once I'd finished completing all the figurines. And third is going to be another parrot. And the bird beneath there became an Arctic tern. And I decided to connect all of the figurines together like a puzzle to show them all as part of an ecosystem together. And I opted for only seeds in the background because I thought that they would probably dry better than anything else. I thought maybe coconut flakes might be okay, but that white color I didn't think would add to it anyway. I thought it might not dry as well either. I wanted something green in the background to represent the wilderness. And that bird next to the Arctic tern became a third parrot, and the one I'm making right there is going to be the father eagle. And my name is Stephen Richards. I'm an artist working on my own at home. I don't have a degree in art. I got a degree in biology because I wanted to add science to my fiction. But it's hard to get paid being an artist on your own, especially without a degree in art. But I didn't know what I was going to do with my degree, and I didn't know it was going to matter. So I thought I was going to learn biology. Well, no, that isn't what I was doing. I was just learning it to make my fiction, my science fiction, more interesting. And that bird on top of the father eagle became a goose. And that became a rabbit. All along, I knew I wanted to be an artist subconsciously, but I was confused about careers and jobs and making money, and I didn't understand what I was supposed to do in life to make a living. And I got depressed from it. I gained some serious mental illness from not doing in life what I really enjoyed doing. I thought people were just supposed to get paid in any way, shape, or form. Well, you can't really survive that way, though. I can't anyway. If I just make money, I get severe depression because it's not spiritual. It's just completely physical and dark. It's just like gambling for money all the time. It's just terrible to me. At first, I thought that rabbit was going to be a ram horn or a gold, and at first it did look like a gold, but then as I continued streamlining it for the size of the board, it started to get more and more like a rabbit. But it's weird not to get paid for what you learned to do in life, or for what you just naturally do in life, which is the same thing. It really makes no sense at all that you would think that that anyone would think that the only way to make a living is to just like fit into somebody else's mold. And then how are you supposed to be healthy or sane that way? And that bird became the baby eagle. And that other bird next to the father eagle became a pelican. I mean, the only way to be a human being is to do what you just naturally do in life. So, as people hired me to do, exactly what they had to have done to make a living themselves was ridiculously sick. So then I was done with all the foundations of all the figurines. And then I shrunk the glue can again and sprayed all of the figurines and the scenes all again, all over, and let them dry a while. So what happened was I became disabled. That's what they said. That's what they call disabilities. They started giving me disability income. And it isn't even enough money, and I get help from my family to make up for the difference, but it's still not enough money. So that doesn't make sense either, because just because you're disabled doesn't mean you're not supposed to have a way to make a living anyway. And doctors don't even know what my disability is. They can't even identify it. And I just think that if that's something that can happen to people, I think it's insane. It's just totally ridiculous. So I added more eyes to all of the figurines and made sure that anything else I added, I sprayed with more glue. And that's the bottle of sealer. It's a different kind of spray. So this is my finished work of art. It's a clay menagerie mosaic on seeds. It's 3-dimensional, and it has several different kinds of animals in it. I didn't really plan on what I was going to make. I had some extra clay on hand and I had some pumpkin seeds. So I used pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds, and chia seeds for the background. This is a raven. This is a pelican. That's an eagle. That's the father eagle. That's the mother eagle. And that's the baby eagle. There's a goose. There's a parrot. That's another parrot. And that's a third parrot. That's an Arctic tern. That's a loon. That's an alligator. That's a dog. And it's sealed in 3 different types of sealants. One is a spray glue, another is a non-toxic school glue, and the third is a spray sealer. So I topped it all off with the non-toxic clear school glue to seal it completely. I'm Stephen Richards. I'm also the music composer Andrew Pinell and also the author Stevie Mark. And I decided 2 days ago to make a 3-dimensional visual work of art, and I used pumpkin seeds, colored clay, chia seeds, and hemp seeds. And I didn't really know what it was going to turn out to be, but it's several birds and some other animals. And it's all sealed in a coating of clear, non-toxic school glue. And I can sell it to whoever wants to buy it for a negotiable rate. I'm calling it, let's see, the name, I thought of the name, Not Just Birds, I think, not, well, it's got an alligator, so then it's like in a swamp, like in Florida, so it's like Not Just Birds in a Swamp, maybe, is the title of it.